Hello, I'm Simon Roderick from Fram Search, and today I'm delighted to be joined by Dan Bailey, Executive Director of Arkle Finance. Dan, how are you keeping?
Very well, thanks, Simon. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. And how are you guys getting on from an operational perspective, dealing with things we've never seen before, like lockdown?
Well, now we're into lockdown 3. We've had a lot of practice at it, and I have to say, operationally, the team reacted incredibly well. Within just over 2 weeks, we were effectively entirely operational on a remote basis, and that comes from effectively relocating 60 people or so out of an office with all of their desks and other computer equipment to have a team that's then functioning at home within a few short weeks was a testament really to the attitude of the team and also the support of all of the IT and telecoms people that we have around us, those unsung heroes really.
They really are, aren't they? I mean, to think we're moving complex organisations to remote working overnight. I mean, I think IT people can't get enough praise for what they've done and for how well they've kind of looked after everyone, really. They definitely are unsung heroes. And it's glad to hear that, everyone's kind of adapted to that quite well. But more importantly, well done for remembering what lockdown we're in. So I wasn't sure whether it was 3 or 4. I've kind of lost count. Dan, today I wanted to talk to you about your industry, which is asset finance. It's an enormous industry. I was looking at the Finance and Leasing Association figures, and I think last year 113 billion was advanced to businesses and individuals from your sector, 27 billion of which is in asset finance, which is your specialist field. Could you tell people who perhaps aren't as familiar with the industry what asset finance firms do and what type of companies benefit from their services?
Yeah, thank you. So it's a very wide range of companies. Almost any business you can think of probably uses asset finance in some form, and that could be through the leasing of the company cars or the vans that are used, and also again we mentioned IT and telecoms, but the IT equipment, the laptops, the desktops that are used in the office, and all of the other offices equipment is widely financed by asset finance businesses. These are businesses that allow SMEs, primarily in the UK, but all sorts of corporates, to spread the cost of the assets that they use every day in their business over a period of time and to help smooth their cash flow.
And obviously, I'm coming to you as a lender and I'm saying, I want to borrow some money. So I'm asking you for something. What kind of advice would you give people that are looking to raise money in terms of how they successfully prepare for that process?
It's a really good question. I think the main piece of advice is talk about your business. Tell the lender about your business, and that can be warts and all. Every firm has its successes and every firm has its challenges, and it's very important to be open about the challenges that you face, and in particular how you're addressing them. We've all had major challenges over the last 12 months or so. And one of the things that almost every asset finance business is asking about is how their clients have reacted to the pandemic, because it's absolutely crucial to understand what the plans are, what pressures that puts on that business model, and how they're planning to overcome them. So be very, very open, almost undertake a SWOT analysis of your business and recognize that things don't always go well, but you have a plan to address them when they don't.
So it's about building partnership, from what you're saying, with your potential lender, which I think sometimes people are perhaps a bit nervous about doing. So how early on do you suggest people engage in that conversation?
Well, the way that Arkle operates is we're quite often at arm's length from the end user client. We operate with a network of intermediaries who gather lots of this information on behalf of the client and on behalf of Arkle as the funder. So that openness with the introducer is very, very important, and getting across the key information that you want to share with the funder, as I said, both good and bad, is crucial. And if you can find a good introducer who can help you to test and unlock some of that information at an early stage, they're worth their weight in gold.
Yeah, and the industry, as I said earlier on, it's enormous now, but it's really boomed over the last few years. Why do you think there's been such growth?
It's a really good question. Asset finance as a headline has provided around about 30 to 35% of overall business investment in the UK for a long time. It's always hovered around that level, and it's a reaction of the growth we've seen in business investment through the last decade.
And are you seeing any particular areas where there's perhaps more demand than others? There's certain industries that are performing quite well versus those that aren't?
Not particularly for Arkle. We tend to be highly diverse in our approach to different sectors, and therefore we don't really recognise significant growth or concentrations in any particular areas. So from my perspective, no. But the key areas that we have seen lots of activity in over the last couple of years or so is on the vehicle side when it comes to hybrid and electric vehicles, and just the changes in technology that are driving that.
Absolutely. And we can't talk about the kind of, wider economic environment and financing without discussing the budget. I guess two questions really. What were your thoughts on the budget, but actually in particular, what did you think about this new super deduction in terms of the effect for your end user clients?
Good question. So the first point around the budget, generally widely reported as a good budget for business, which I would agree with. There is certainly a view, I think, within central government that the route through this pandemic and the economic crisis that we've had is for business to drive that, and that's very, very important. So, generally a very good budget for business, and in particular, there's a recognition, I think, that business investment is crucial for that going forward. Now, business investment has been subdued in the last 12 months or so. There's strong expectations. If you look at research from the Bank of England, there's strong expectations that the second half of this year will see big growth in business investment. And much of that, I suspect, will be supported by asset finance. And really, the budget was designed, I think, to ensure that opportunity wasn't missed, that firms are pretty strongly encouraged to take advantage of the benefits that have been put through in the budget and invest as early as possible in the cycle, so that we can recover as quickly as possible. And that's
sorry, don't you think it will bring forward that investment? It'll encourage people to bring it forward, perhaps update their equipment. Is that what you're saying?
Hopefully, and I think if you actually look, businesses have had to invest quite heavily in the last 12 months as a reaction to the remote working and the pandemic generally. So, the way that offices are laid out is highly likely to change over the next year or so. And also the way in which we operate, and collaborate, communicate, all of that requires equipment and requires investment. So it'll be interesting to see, whether it is asset finance that's used for that. And I think asset finance is well placed to support it.
I think I agree with you as well. I think it was a great budget in the sense of, the Chancellor, his hands were really tied in the sense of he didn't have much wiggle room, but I actually thought he came away with what I thought was a reasonably fair balance. And actually what I also liked as well is he gave a vision for the future. So, in a difficult time, he has given a kind of roadmap for where he wants the UK to go. So I would definitely agree with you. Have you seen any changes in activity over the last few months at all? Any uptick? Was it just the same as it was before, sort of reasonably strong? I mean, have you seen changing patterns?
Pattern-wise, there was lots of activity, despite the pandemic throughout last year, particularly supported by the CBIL scheme, which Arkle is an accredited partner. That's coming to an end, as we know, at the end of March, and I suspect there'll be quite an influx of activity ahead of that close date. And that scheme will then be replaced by the recovery loan scheme, which is going to support businesses throughout the rest of 2021. So it'll be interesting to see what that looks like. But business typically in the asset finance market is pretty slow to start the year, but does pick up through the summer months and actually into the second half of the year quite often.
Yeah, absolutely. Talking about the industry, as you've rightly said, every industry has been through changes, but talking about your industry, have you seen a change in what skills your business needs? And do you think going forwards there'll be a change in the skill set blends that you needed within the firm?
Yes, I agree, because asset finance to my mind is really a reflection of its client base being predominantly SMEs in the UK. And therefore, as their needs and requirements change, so too do the skills that are required in the asset finance industry. There's definitely a demand for more knowledge of particular sectors and equipment types from clients, SME clients, when they're talking to their finance providers. Clients don't want to have to explain absolutely how the equipment is going to transform their business. They want to talk to people in the finance industry that speak the same language and understand what they're trying to do without having to walk the funder through in baby steps. So again, having these experts, having these specialists that are effectively a conduit between the finance professionals and the client are really, really important. So
effectively, as we see the shifts at macro level, you're going to see the industry change the types of specialisms and expertise, and that's what you normally see within the industry. That's really interesting. And what about particular roles? So, for example, we've seen in our other practices, things like field sales have been quite difficult for obvious reasons. You can't physically go out and meet your clients. I know for a lot of people in the industry, that's a real challenge, because in most industries, people really love meeting their clients. Sales is a funny thing, because actually a lot of people in sales are service driven. And so they're really missing meeting clients. So that's been difficult, but I think that might come back quite fast when things unlock. But what skill sets do you think, in terms of functions, do you think there might be a slight upturn in?
Definitely those technical people that can help us to understand how best to automate and use technology in order to minimize some of the more menial processes that we've all undertaken from time to time. So actually, there's an awful lot of attention in the asset finance industry about reducing some of the unnecessary cost and friction. And actually, automation is a key part of that. That requires a lot of technology. So there's certainly investment in that area. And again, that's the same across UK business.
And for those that are considering going to industry, or those that perhaps are at crossroads in their career, why would you be an advocate for the industry as a place to work?
That's a good question. The thing that keeps me engaged is the diversity of the industry, and that's a function of the fact that businesses, particularly in the UK, take on all different shapes and sizes and are operated by a wide variety of people. And that means actually very rarely are 2 days the same. You will, in this industry, you meet some very interesting people along the way who have done an awful lot in their career to date. And similarly, you can meet people that are incredibly passionate about what they're going to do, but maybe are just starting out on that journey. And the thing that I see as most common in all the successful people is that passion. They are really desperate to succeed, and they really care about what they're doing.
It's very interesting for us, because we're obviously slightly removed. We support your industry, we don't work in your industry, but I would echo that. Things that I think that we enjoy from our specialist finance practice are that it's a growth area. Parts of financial services haven't been as strong. It's a growth area, and it's dynamic. And as you said, you're supporting such a diverse range of clients that you're very close to the real economy in many ways. How do you feel about the rest of 2021 from an economic perspective?
Positive. I hesitate to use the word optimistic, but certainly positive. Certainly positive. I think it's going to be very, as we saw last year. I think to some extent we got to the summer and thought things were improving so dramatically that we thought we'd cracked it. So I think there's going to be an element of nervousness about what the autumn and winter brings when it comes to the virus. But actually, I think that ahead of that, there's an awful lot of opportunity. And there is, as we know, there's an awful lot of pent-up demand that will be released at some point throughout this year. I think we're all keen to see that released early, because that'll be an indication of a return to the world in which we knew before. That world will be different, but I think some of the things that we probably slightly took for granted and the freedoms that we had, we're all desperate to enjoy again.
Yeah, I think a lot of our clients do feel very bullish actually going forwards. I mean, you're absolutely right. We need to temper that around how we unlock and safely unlocking, but assume that the roadmap goes to plan. I think people feel very confident on the UK, and it's made people sit back, I think, and reevaluate the structure of what they're doing and the processes they've got in place. And if you leave people at home long enough thinking about things, they imagine new ways of working and new ways of reinventing their business. So I think there's a lot of pent-up demand, as you say, going forwards. Well, thank you very much for talking me through that. And it's been really interesting to hear about, Arkle's involvement in the asset finance industry and how you're supporting your clients and intermediaries. So thank you very much, Dan, for talking to me. It's been a pleasure, and keep well. And I look forward to meeting soon.
Pleasure. Thank you, Simon.